A big night of upsets on the hardwood in the SEC, guys. Some really, really interesting results last night as some of the top teams in the SEC go down. And we start most notably, and this has been a huge week of upsets, by the way, in the SEC or just college basketball in general. We've seen Purdue go down. We've seen Houston go down. We've seen Kansas go down. And now the Tennessee Volunteers, who fall to Mississippi State by a final score of 77-72. What a win for Chris Jan's squad. You know, guys, looking at the slate last night, you had a pair of home underdogs. And I really felt like, I was like, you know what? We're not getting chalk tonight. Like we're going to see some upsets. Pick the Ole Miss game, which we're going to get into in a second. I thought Tennessee was a good pick in this ballgame. I thought Tennessee would go into Starkville, right? You knew Mississippi State coming off the loss to South Carolina. You know, they were somewhat desperate, what have you. You don't want to fall to 0-2 in SEC play. But Tennessee coming off that huge blowout win against the Ole Miss Rebels. You're thinking to yourself, okay, they're a machine, right? Nobody's going to stop Tennessee. Guys, I think what last night, and even just this Mississippi State-Tennessee game, it goes to show this is a microcosm for the craziness and the madness we're going to get in SEC play this year. Because with NIL, with the portal, with the parity increasing, guys, there's not an easy night in the SEC anymore. Like there's really, truly not. When you got a team like Mississippi State, who I think we probably all consider middle of the pack, guys. I don't think we consider Mississippi State an elite team at all. But Chris Jan's team, hey, you have to go on the road. Tolu Smith gets hot. A couple guys get hot. All of a sudden, look at you. You're down late in the game. State did their best to lose that game late, too. But you got a guy like Hubbard who scores 25 points. You got a guy like Tolu Smith who scores 23 points. All it takes is one or two guys going off, and all of a sudden you pull a big upset. That's exactly what Mississippi State did. Shot 50% from the floor, 33% from three. You look at Tennessee, they held in a 46% from the floor, 28% from three. A couple guys with some big performances, too. Necht had 28 points, Ziegler 26. Adu with just 9 points, though. A huge win. I mean, a huge win for Chris Jan's team, bouncing back from that South Carolina loss and getting this victory over a top 5 team. But again, guys, I think this really just screams to it's going to be madness. Like, even the best teams in the SEC, even the teams at the very top, they're going to take their licks, man. I mean, you maybe look at a Vandy as like that's kind of the kick-in win for most teams. But, dude, LSU can beat you on any given night. Mississippi State can beat you on any given night. South Carolina can beat you on any given night. You keep going down the list. There's not an easy out in this conference. And we saw that last night with Mississippi State getting this huge win over the Tennessee Volunteers. And this is really, guys, the first time I think we've seen Tennessee look vulnerable, right? Because their 3 losses prior to this were to Purdue, Kansas, and North Carolina. Like, they were really impressive losses. Call it what it is. And they had crushed everyone else. And so for State to get this dub, man, just a huge, huge victory for Chris Jan's team. And now Tennessee left picking up the pieces. And Rick Barnes and company got to get it shored up quickly. They go on I believe they go on the road. Maybe they host Georgia. They've got Georgia this weekend. Tennessee's back on the road yet again. Take on Georgia, ESPN2 game at noon. We'll talk more about that, guys, tomorrow. But a big game for sure. And another tough spot, man. Georgia's been a team. Can beat anybody on any given night. Life is tough in the SEC this year. Speaking of Georgia, guys, they take down Arkansas last night. Final score of 76-66. Guys, I think it's time to pronounce Arkansas hoops dead for this season. I think Arkansas is in real trouble, man. Like, normally we've seen these slow starts under Eric Musselman where, like, November, December, and you'll hear our good friend Jeff Goodman later in the show talk about this. But we've seen Arkansas start slow before, right? Like, this isn't something that's new to us. They tend to get off to some slower start. They pick it up, though, as they go. I don't know they're going to pick it up this year, man, because, I mean, not only do you lose to Georgia, you lose by double digits to Georgia. And you're 0-2 in SEC play. Double-digit loss to Georgia, blowout loss. Worst loss in the history of Bud Walton Arena to the Auburn Tigers last Saturday. I mean, I just don't know where the answers come from, guys. I really don't. Arkansas's talented. Make no mistake, they're talented, but they're lost. I mean, they are just totally lost right now, right? And give credit to Georgia, right? Georgia was a favorite in this game. They were expected to win. And I think they're doing a great job this year. I mean, that coaching staff has been fantastic. That team has been great. Hill with 19 points, Thomason with 15 points. It's really impressive to see. I mean, I recall Georgia a couple of years ago just being abysmal, right? A 1 or 2 win team in SEC play. Georgia's another one, man. Middle of the pack, right? Middle of the pack that any given night they can beat anybody. But again, I think the bigger takeaway, man, just Arkansas. Like, what is Arkansas? Like, what's going on in Fayetteville? What's going on in Fayetteville? And it's absolutely crazy to see. Finally, guys, how about the Ole Miss Rebels, man? The response from Ole Miss after you get blown out by Tennessee. You're labeled as a fraud. You're no good. See, Ole Miss played nobody. They're this, they're that, whatever. All they do is come back home, guys, and score one hundo. Score a hundo against the Florida Gators. 103-85. I mean, shot the lights out, guys. Ole Miss shot 59% in this game, guys. 40% from three. Brakefield with 28. Merle with 23. Flanagan with 17. Murray with 12. And the friendly confines. I mean, it helps to come home for sure. But I was not buying the fact that, oh, Ole Miss is a fraud. They're no good. They're this, they're that, whatever. Great job by Chris Beard and company. Again, get that team off the mat. Say, hey, you know what? Took an L. It is what it is. Still believe in ourselves. We're still the team that we think we are. And they showed that. And for Florida, you know, I know Florida fans are down and out. You're 0-2 now in SEC play. You lost that game to Kentucky. You know, I think Florida, again, from the defensive side, you got to be somewhat worried, right? You give up 60% shooting. I mean, my goodness, what's going on the defensive side of the floor? I'm not hitting the panic button any sort of way on Florida yet, but you got to get off the schneid quickly. You cannot afford to fall 0-3 in SEC play. But Ole Miss, man, as the home underdog, they win this game by 18 points. 18 points. So this year in the SEC is going to be fun, man. This year in the SEC is going to be crazy. Nobody is safe. Anybody can beat anybody. And we saw that last night on the hardwood.